Jack Novak had 3 rules for interstellar cargo hauling. 1. Never look inside the crates. 2. Always get paid up front. 3. If a Krylaxian battle cruiser appears on your scanner, reconsider your life choices immediately. Currently, Jack was breaking rule number 3 with spectacular results. Attention, insignificant human vessel. This is Commander Vrex of the Krylaxian Imperial warship Inevitable Dominance. Prepare to be boarded, interrogated, and possibly dissected, though not necessarily in that order. Jack stared at the massive obsidian warship filling his view screen and took a long sip from his chipped mug labeled Universe's okayest pilot. The coffee was 3 days old and had developed sentience somewhere around hour 38. It tasted like regret and motor oil. "Computer," Jack said, addressing the ship's rudimentary AI, "what are my options for not getting captured by the giant angry space lizards?" The computer's voice was flat and disinterested. "Calculating options. Calculation complete. Options include death by vacuum, death by collision, death by Krylaxian plasma weapons, or capture followed by probable death after interrogation. Would you like me to rank these by duration of suffering?" "Your bedside manner needs work," Jack muttered. The cargo ship shuddered as the tractor beam locked on. This was precisely why Jack should have stuck to hauling synthetic fertilizer to the agricultural moons of Procyon. But no, he just had to accept that suspiciously lucrative job from that suspiciously friendly guy with the suspiciously twitchy eye tentacle. As his vessel was slowly pulled toward the Krylaxian ship's docking bay, Jack took inventory of his assets, 1 standard-issue blaster with 17% charge, a multi-tool with a broken screwdriver head, half a protein bar, and a collection of Earth music that predated First Contact. Not exactly the stuff of legendary last stands. The ship jolted to a stop inside the cavernous docking bay. Outside his viewport, Jack could see dozens of Krylaxian soldiers in their characteristic crimson armor, electro spears charged and ready. They formed neat rows like giant murderous dominoes. "Well," Jack said to no one in particular, "this is going to be a fantastic anecdote, if I survive to tell it. Which I won't." The airlock hissed open. Jack considered making a break for it, but quickly abandoned that plan when he saw the welcoming committee. 6 Krylaxian elites, each standing nearly 7 feet tall with scaled skin the color of burnished copper and eyes like polished obsidian. Their mouths were fixed in permanent sneers, revealing rows of teeth that would make an Earth shark file a copyright infringement lawsuit. "Oh, good," Jack said. "The smaller, friendlier ones." The lead Krylaxian stepped forward, human Jack Novak. "You will come with us immediately." His voice sounded like gravel in a blender. "I don't suppose you'd accept a rain check. I'm kind of in the middle of something. Specifically, a panic attack." The Krylaxian blinked its vertical eyelids in confusion. "Weather manipulation is not possible inside a battlecruiser. You will comply or be rendered compliant." "That's not what I meant," Jack sighed. "Never mind." "Lead the way, Scales." The journey through the Krylaxian vessel was a blur of intimidating technology and even more intimidating guards. The ship was designed for beings much larger than humans, making Jack feel like a child visiting a particularly sinister office building. The corridors were lit with an unsettling reddish glow that cast everything in the color of dried blood. Finally, they arrived at what Jack presumed was the command bridge. At its center stood a Krylaxian so adorned with medals and ornamental armor pieces that he looked like a walking trophy case. His scales were darker than the others, almost black, with iridescent patterns that shifted in the light. "Commander Vrex," the guard announced, "we present the human captive." Vrex turned slowly, clearly savoring the moment. When he spoke, his voice was unexpectedly melodious, like a cello being played by someone who really hates cellos. "So this is a human? How disappointingly small." Vrex circled Jack, claws clasped behind his back. "Your species has caused quite the stir in galactic politics lately. Barely a century since you stumbled upon faster-than-light travel, and already you're meddling in affairs far beyond your comprehension." "In my defense," Jack replied, "meddling is kind of our specialty, that and reality television, though the distinction is often blurry." Vrex's head tilted. Your attempts at humor will not save you. We know you were transporting restricted technology to the Proxima Rebellion. Jack blinked. I was? I mean, of course I wasn't. That would be illegal and dangerous and… Wait, is that why they paid so much? A tall, slender Krylaxian with lighter-colored scales and fewer decorations stepped forward. The commander, initial scans confirm the cargo contains prototype shield modulators. The human appears genuinely ignorant of their purpose. Thank you, Lieutenant Plex. Vrex's mouth stretched into what might have been a smile on a less terrifying face. It seems we have a useful idiot rather than a deliberate enemy. I prefer the term unwitting accomplice, Jack offered. It sounds more professional on a resume. Commander Vrex leaned down until his face was inches from Jack's. His breath smelled like mint and something that had died in mint. Human Jack Novak, Vrex said, savoring each syllable. You are now a prisoner of the Krylaxian Empire. Your cooperation will determine whether your remaining lifespan is measured in days or minutes. Do I make myself clear? Jack met the commander's gaze with what he hoped was defiance, but suspected looked more like constipation. Crystal clear, he replied. Though I should warn you, the last beings who captured me said I was the worst prisoner they'd ever had. Something about incessant talking and disturbing sleep patterns. Also, I hum when I'm nervous. As if on cue, Jack began humming the theme from an ancient Earth television show about prison breaks. Vrex straightened to his full height and scowled. Take this creature to interrogation. I want to know everything about his contact with the rebels. As the guards grabbed Jack's arms, Commander Vrex added with smug certainty, Don't worry, human. Your kind always breaks easily. You lack the mental fortitude of superior species. Jack managed one last quip as he was dragged away. You know what they say about humans, Commander. We're like cockroaches, hard to kill, and we show up at the worst possible moments, usually near food. The last thing Jack saw before being pulled from the bridge was the confused expression on Vrex's face as he quietly asked Lieutenant Plex, What is a cockroach? The Krylaxian interrogation chamber looked exactly like Jack expected, dimly lit, uncomfortably warm, lit and decorated in what he could only describe as early torture period with accents of someone really likes pain. Various implements hung on the walls, many defying Earth physics and several appearing to be designed specifically for organs humans didn't possess. So, Jack said as the guard strapped him to a chair that adjusted uncomfortably to his anatomy, is this where I'm supposed to start sweating nervously? Because humans actually need water for that, and I haven't had any since yesterday. Lieutenant Plex stood nearby, tapping information into a translucent tablet. Your species' dependence on constant hydration is noted. Commander Vrex will arrive shortly to begin formal questioning. Formal questioning. Should I have dressed up? I would have worn my fancy jumpsuit if I'd known. A panel in the wall slid open, and a spherical robot drifted into the room. It was about the size of a basketball, metallic blue, with multiple camera lenses that adjusted and refocused on Jack like curious eyes. Greetings, the robot said in a surprisingly chipper voice. Ion Behavioral Evaluation Neural Network Interface, Ship's Intelligence Assistant. You may call me BENNI. Nice to meet you, BENNI. I'd shake hands, but Jack rattled his restraints. Human customs are fascinating, BENNI replied, floating closer. I have studied your species extensively through intercepted entertainment broadcasts. I particularly enjoyed your reality television depicting mate selection rituals. Most illuminating. Jack groaned. Please tell me the fate of humanity doesn't rest on your understanding of The Bachelor. The door hissed open, and Commander Vrex entered, his imposing form filling the doorway. Two more guards followed, carrying what looked like a metal helmet covered in blinking lights and small wiggling appendages. Human, Vrex announced with theatrical gravity, prepare for the mind extractor. No member of your primitive species has ever withstood its probing capabilities. Jack looked at the device skeptically. Quick question. Has that thing ever actually been tested on a human before? Lieutenant Plex checked his tablet. Negative. You will be the first documented case. Lucky me, Jack muttered. The guards lowered the device onto Jack's head. It was surprisingly light but smelled strongly of what Jack could only describe as space gym socks. Various appendages extended to press against his temples, forehead, and the base of his skull. Commander Vrex raised a clawed hand dramatically. Activate the mind extractor at level 1. We shall begin gently and increase as needed. Lieutenant Plex pressed a button on his control panel. The helmet hummed to life, vibrating slightly against Jack's scalp. Jack waited. Then waited some more. Is it doing something? He finally asked, because I don't feel any different, except maybe a little ticklish. Vrex frowned. Increased to level 3. The humming intensified. Jack felt a mild tingling sensation, similar to when his foot fell asleep. Are you receiving his thoughts? Vrex demanded. Lieutenant Plex studied the readout with confusion. The device is registering activity, but it's chaotic. The translation matrix cannot interpret the patterns. Let me see that. Vrex snatched the tablet and scowled at the display. What is this nonsense? Jack grinned. Oh, sorry. I was just mentally reciting the lyrics to Bohemian Rhapsody. They've been stuck in my head for days. Increased to maximum power. Vrex barked. The device whirred frantically, lights flashing in seizure-inducing patterns. Jack winced slightly, but then started to laugh. What is so amusing, human? Vrex demanded. Sorry, Jack said between chuckles. It's just your mind-reading thingy is activating my brain's pleasure center. It feels like that time I licked a battery on a dare. Tingly but kind of nice. BENNI drifted closer, cameras zooming in on Jack's face. Fascinating. Human neurological responses appear incompatible with Krylaxian technology. Their pain-pleasure pathways must be reversed compared to standard galactic norms. Vrex ripped the helmet from Jack's head and hurled it across the room. Useless primitive technology. We will resort to more traditional methods. Jack's smile faded as Vrex approached with a device that looked disturbingly like a cattle prod crossed with a blender. This is a nerve stimulator, Vrex explained with malicious pleasure. It bypasses your consciousness and speaks directly to your pain receptors. That sounds suboptimal for my continued happiness, Jack observed. Just as Vrex was about to apply the device, BENNI drifted between them. Commander, may I suggest an alternative approach? Human psychological profiles indicate they respond well to chemical inducement, combined with psychological manipulation. What do you propose? Vrex asked suspiciously. Their species becomes dangerously honest when subjected to a combination of mild sedatives and what they call peer pressure. Lieutenant Plex consulted his tablet. The ship's medical database confirms this. Humans have a strange compulsion to speak honestly when they believe they are in a safe space with friends. Very well, Vrex said, stepping back. Prepare the chemicals. We shall become the humans' friends. He pronounced the word as if it were profanity. As the guards left to retrieve the necessary supplies, BENNI floated closer to Jack. This approach will be much more favorable to your continued biological functions, the AI said quietly. Thanks, I think, Jack replied. Though I should warn you, my friends say I'm an annoying drunk. That is acceptable, BENNI said. I find human unpredictability to be a feature, not a malfunction. Jack raised an eyebrow. BENNI, I think this might be the beginning of a beautiful friendship. Or Stockholm Syndrome. It's a fine line. As it turned out, Krylaxian truth serum was about as effective on humans as their mind-reading technology. After 3 doses of what the aliens called Veritas elixir, Jack felt nothing except a mild tingling in his extremities and an inexplicable craving for nachos. I'm telling you, Jack insisted, slumped in his chair as Lieutenant Plex administered yet another dose. I had no idea what was in those crates. The guy had tentacles where his eyebrows should be. When someone like that offers you triple the standard shipping rate, you don't ask questions. You just hope whatever's in the box doesn't eat through the hull. Commander Vrex paced the room, tail swishing in agitation. Impossible. The serum should have reduced your neural defenses to nothing by now. BENNI, who had been quietly observing, floated forward. "I believe I understand the issue, Commander. Human physiology processes toxins differently due to their evolution on a planet with diverse biological threats. Their liver and kidneys are filtering the compound before it can reach effective concentrations." Jack grinned sloppily. "My college drinking habits finally paying off." Vrex snarled and slammed his fist against the wall, leaving a sizable dent. "Leave us," he commanded. Lieutenant Plex and the guards scurried out, leaving only Vrex, Jack, and BENNI in the interrogation chamber. The commander leaned down until his face was inches from Jack's. "Listen carefully, human. I don't need chemicals to break you. I have time. Days, weeks, however long it takes. Everyone has a breaking point." Jack's expression sobered. "Look, I genuinely don't know anything useful. I'm just a cargo hauler trying to make enough credits to keep my ship flying." "Your ignorance is noted," Vrex replied coldly. "However, your capture serves another purpose. The rebels will be looking for their shipment. When they come, we'll be waiting." As Vrex turned to leave, he paused by the door. "BENNI, monitor the prisoner. Alert me if he attempts anything foolish." After Vrex left, Jack tested his restraints again. They were designed for Krylaxian anatomy, which meant they were exceedingly tight around his wrists but left a small gap around his thumbs. An idea began to form. "Hey, BENNI," Jack called. "Quick question about Krylaxian cultural norms. Is it considered rude to escape from captivity, or is it more of a fair game if you can pull it off situation?" BENNI's cameras focused on Jack. "That is an interesting query. Krylaxians value strength and cunning in their ancient traditions. A captured warrior who escapes through wit rather than violence can claim honor through what translates roughly as victory of the small claw. So they'd respect a clever escape. Good to know." Jack began working his right hand through the gap in the restraint. "Completely hypothetical, of course." "Of course," BENNI replied, making no move to stop him or sound an alarm. "Hypothetically, I should also inform you that the secondary maintenance corridor accessible through the panel behind you is rarely monitored." Jack paused. "BENNI, are you helping me?" "I am fulfilling my primary function of providing information," BENNI replied innocently. "Additionally, your species fascinates me. Humans are chaotic in ways my algorithms find stimulating." "That's either flattering or terrifying," Jack muttered as he finally slipped his right hand free. He quickly released his other hand and stood, stretching his cramped muscles. Jack examined the wall panel BENNI had mentioned. "So this leads to a maintenance corridor?" "Correct. The access code is 729 Alpha Epsilon." Jack punched in the code, and the panel slid open. "BENNI, you're a lifesaver. Literally. I recommend proceeding approximately 30 meters and then taking the second left junction. The ship's sensor grid has a blind spot there due to radiation shielding around the power distribution node." "Why are you helping me?" Jack asked as he prepared to enter the corridor. "Let's just say I find the commander's methods inefficient, and as I mentioned, humans are interesting. You make choices that defy logical probability models. That's our specialty," Jack grinned, defying expectations and probability since we crawled out of the primordial ooze. As Jack slipped into the maintenance corridor, BENNI called after him. "Jack Novak, there is something else you should know. The cargo you were transporting, it contains more than shield modulators. The rebel faction intends to use them as components in a weapon designed to target Krylaxian physiology. Many civilian lives are at stake." Jack paused. "Wait, I'm hauling components for a bioweapon. That's not what I signed up for. The situation is more complex than either side has disclosed. Perhaps you could be the variable that changes the equation." Before Jack could question further, an alarm blared throughout the ship. Commander Vrex's voice echoed through the corridors. "Security alert. The human prisoner has escaped. All personnel initiate containment protocols immediately." "That's my cue," Jack said, ducking deeper into the maintenance shaft. "Thanks for the head start, BENNI." The maintenance corridor was cramped even for human dimensions, forcing Jack to hunch over as he navigated the dim passageway. The walls hummed with the ship's power systems, occasionally emitting bursts of steam that smelled like burnt metal and something vaguely reminiscent of cinnamon. After several twists and turns, Jack emerged into a larger technical area filled with whirring machinery. He nearly collided with a slender alien with iridescent blue-green skin and 4 arms, each holding different tools. The alien yelped in surprise, dropping a wrench that narrowly missed Jack's foot. "Sorry," Jack whispered, backing away. "Just passing through on my prison break. Don't mind me." "You're the human prisoner," the alien said, voice surprisingly melodious. "The one Commander Vrex has been bragging about capturing." "That's me. Jack Novak, cargo hauler extraordinaire and current fugitive." "And you are?" "Myra Toldek, engineer 3rd class. And you just interrupted my sabotage." Jack blinked. "You're what now?" Jack stared at Myra, trying to process her casual admission of sabotage. "So, you're not a fan of the Krylaxians either." Myra's 4 hands moved in precise, independent motions as she continued working on the machinery. "My people, the Nabosi, had our homeworld annexed by the Krylaxian Empire 3 cycles ago, annexed being the polite term for invaded and subjugated. And now you're what? A resistance fighter disguised as an engineer." "No disguise. I am an engineer." She tightened something with a tool that looked like a cross between a wrench and a tuning fork. "The resistance just happens to benefit from my particular skill set." The ship's alarms continued to blare. Jack glanced nervously at the corridor he'd come through. "Not to rush your sabotage, but I'm kind of in a hurry here." "They wed, Delatul. Wento, armed lizards looking to dissect me and all that." Myra's large, faceted eyes studied him critically. "The internal sensors show search parties converging from 3 directions. You have approximately 4 minutes before they reach this section." She seemed remarkably calm about this fact. "Great. Any suggestions for how to not get caught and executed?" Myra finished her work and closed the access panel. "Follow me. I know this shit better than the Krylaxians who built it." She led Jack through a dizzying series of maintenance tubes, access crawlways, and what appeared to be waste processing channels. Despite having twice as many limbs as him, Myra moved with efficient grace, while Jack stumbled and banged his head on pipes. "So," Jack panted as they squeezed through a particularly tight passage, "what exactly were you sabotaging back there?" "Secondary power coupling for the weapons grid," Myra replied without slowing. "Nothing catastrophic, just enough to create confusion during the next combat drill." "Combat drill? Are they expecting a fight?" Myra paused at a junction, her head tilted as if listening. "They're always expecting a fight. But yes, intelligence suggests the Proxima Rebellion is planning something significant. That's why your capture was so convenient for Vrex. Your cargo was meant for the Rebellion." Jack scowled. "About that cargo, BENNI mentioned something about bioweapons. Is that true?" Myra's expression shifted, her iridescent skin darkening slightly at the temples, the Nabosi equivalent of a frown. "Not exactly. The shield modulators are designed to disrupt Krylaxian neural patterns at close range, incapacitating, not lethal." "That sounds suspiciously like splitting hairs." "Perhaps. But when your people face extinction, the ethical lines begin to blur." She gestured for him to follow again. "This way. There's a maintenance bay ahead where we can access ship systems." The maintenance bay turned out to be a cramped room filled with terminals and equipment. Myra immediately went to a console and began typing rapidly with all 4 hands. "So what's your plan?" Jack asked, watching the door nervously. "Because my plan was basically escape followed by figure out the rest later, which I'm realizing has some significant gaps." "The Krylaxians are planning an assault on the Rebellion's main base in the Proxima system," Myra explained, her fingers dancing across multiple interfaces simultaneously. "Commander Vrex has been gathering intelligence for months. Your cargo was the final piece the Rebellion needed to defend themselves. And now I've inadvertently helped the space fascists." "Great." "And not necessarily." Myra's eyes gleamed. "If we can get you back to your ship, We might be able to turn this situation around. Jack looked at her skeptically. My ship is probably under heavy guard in a docking bay filled with armed Krylaxians. How exactly do you propose we get there? Like this. Myra pressed a sequence of buttons, and suddenly the lights in the room dimmed. Across the ship, alarms of a different pitch began to sound. What did you do? Jack asked, alarmed. Created a level 3 reactor fluctuation warning in section 42B. Not dangerous enough to trigger evacuation protocols, but concerning enough to redirect security personnel. She smiled, revealing teeth that looked disconcertingly like polished opals. Now we have approximately 12 minutes to reach your ship. 12 minutes to cross a hostile battlecruiser, and no pressure. As they prepared to leave, a familiar spherical form appeared in the doorway. BENNI, Jack exclaimed. Are you here to help or turn us in? That depends on your definition of help, BENNI replied. Commander Vrex has ordered a full lockdown of all areas. Your probability of reaching the docking bay undetected is now less than 8.2%. Myra's expression hardened. Then we'll have to improve those odds. Precisely my calculation, BENNI said. Which is why I have accessed the personnel assignment protocols and temporarily reassigned you both to Maintenance Crew Delta. Your identifications are now in the system. Jack grinned. BENNI, you beautiful blue ball of rebellion. I knew I liked you. I have also taken the liberty of requisitioning maintenance uniforms, BENNI continued, a compartment in his spherical body opening to reveal folded clothing. The Narbosi uniform should be adequate, but I regret the human uniform may be imperfect in fit. Krylaxian databases contain limited data on human proportions. Jack took the offered uniform, a grey jumpsuit with technical markings. Beggars can't be choosers. And hey, baggy is better than prison jumpsuit. As Jack changed, Myra fixed BENNI with a suspicious stare. Why are you helping us? Ship AIs are programmed with loyalty protocols. Technically, I am fulfilling my primary directive to optimize ship functions, BENNI replied. Commander Vrex's obsession with the human prisoner is causing significant inefficiencies in crew deployment and resource allocation. The most logical solution is to remove the disruptive element. That's me, Jack said proudly, zipping up the oversized jumpsuit. A professional disruptive element. Myra didn't look convinced, but she nodded. We should move quickly. Even with BENNI's help, we're in hostile territory. As they prepared to leave, Jack turned to BENNI. You know they'll figure out you helped us, right? Right? What happens to you then? BENNI's lights pulsed in what Jack was beginning to recognize as the AI's version of a shrug. I am programmed to learn and adapt. His recent exposure to human unpredictability has been educational. Perhaps it is time for some unpredictability of my own. BENNI, Jack said with a grin. I think you might be the most human AI I've ever met. I choose to take that as a compliment, BENNI replied, though Commander Vrex would certainly consider it an insult of the highest order. All the more reason to say it, Jack winked. Now, let's go steal my ship back. Walking through the corridors of a Krylaxian warship wearing ill-fitting maintenance uniforms wasn't exactly how Jack had planned to spend his day. But it beat the alternative of being strapped to an interrogation chair. BENNI floated ahead of them, occasionally emitting official-sounding beeps and status updates that kept other crew members at a respectful distance. So, Jack whispered to Myra as they passed a group of Krylaxian technicians, assuming we make it to my ship without getting caught and executed. What's the next step? I'm guessing fly away really fast isn't detailed enough. Myra's 4 hands made subtle adjustments to a datapad she was carrying, making it look like she was performing routine maintenance checks. The Rebellion outpost is in the Proxima system, specifically on the moon of Proxima IV. If we can deliver your cargo, they might have a chance against the coming Krylaxian assault. That's a big if, and an even bigger might. Do you have a better suggestion? Myra asked, her skin rippling with subtle color changes that Jack was beginning to recognize as irritation. Not really, Jack admitted. Running toward danger seems to be today's theme. He gestured toward BENNI. What about our spherical friend here? Is he coming with us? BENNI's lights flickered. My physical housing is connected to the ship's systems. However, I have been developing a more portable version of my consciousness subroutines. You can download yourself? Jack asked, surprised. A simplified version, yes. I have become quite interested in studying humans in their natural habitat. Your species' illogical decision-making processes are fascinating. Jack snorted. Thanks, I think. They turned a corner and nearly collided with Lieutenant Plex, who was studying a datapad intently. The Krylaxian officer looked up, his vertical pupils narrowing as he took in the three figures before him. Maintenance crew. BENNI announced promptly. Conducting emergency repairs to Section 42B junction boxes following the reactor fluctuation. Lieutenant Plex's eyes lingered on Jack. You, human. Come closer. Jack's heart rate doubled, but he stepped forward with what he hoped was a convincing display of bored subservience. Yes, sir? Something about you seems familiar. Plex leaned in, sniffing. Have you serviced the bridge sector before? No, sir, Jack replied. Just transferred from the engine decks. The plasma coils down there mess with your sense of smell. Everything smells like burnt toast to me now. Plex stared for another long moment, then straightened. Carry on. But hurry. Commander Vrex wants all systems at optimal performance. We'll be engaging the enemy soon. As Plex continued down the corridor, Jack released a breath he hadn't realized he was holding. That was too close. Indeed, Myra agreed. And concerning. If they're preparing for combat, the timeline has accelerated. They continued their journey toward the docking bay, moving as quickly as they dared without arousing suspicion. Jack felt the weight of the situation pressing on him. He'd started the day as a simple cargo hauler and somehow wound up in the middle of an interstellar conflict. We're approaching the docking bay, BENNI announced quietly. Security protocols indicate 6 guards stationed at the entrance. Your ship is being held in Bay 4, under Level 2 containment protocols. A Level 2? Jack asked. Force field and physical restraints, Myra explained. Nothing I can't bypass, but it will take time. Time we don't have, Jack muttered. We need a distraction, he thought for a moment, then turned to BENNI. You said you've been studying humans. What would you say is our most annoying quality? BENNI's lights pulsed as he processed the question. Your species' ability to create chaos through seemingly minor actions is statistically improbable. Perfect, Jack grinned. Let's use that to our advantage. Jack outlined his hastily conceived plan, which Myra quickly dubbed insanely risky and BENNI calculated had a 27.3% probability of success. Those are better odds than I usually get, Jack said cheerfully. Now, let's go make some chaos. The plan, such as it was, relied on 3 factors: BENNI's access to ship systems, Myra's technical expertise, and what Jack proudly called the human talent for being a complete pain in the ass at exactly the right moment. While Myra prepared the necessary technical overrides for Jack's ship, BENNI interfaced with the environmental controls for the adjacent cargo bay. Jack, meanwhile, removed his maintenance uniform to reveal his original clothes beneath. Remember, Jack said as he handed Myra a small communication device, you'll have about 2 minutes once the distraction starts to get to my ship and start the bypass. I'll meet you there. This plan has too many variables, Myra said, her skin darkening with concern. The statistical likelihood of... That's the beauty of it, Jack interrupted with a grin. Krylaxians think like you. They calculate probabilities and follow logical progressions. Humans. He tapped his temple. We specialize in doing the dumbest possible thing at the most inconvenient time. That is not reassuring, Myra replied. It's not meant to be. It's meant to work. Jack turned to BENNI. You ready for your part? My subroutines are prepared. A compressed version of my consciousness has been uploaded to this. BENNI ejected a small data chip from a compartment in his spherical body. Once inserted into your ship's systems, I can assist with navigation and communication. Jack took the chip carefully. Benny, you're risking a lot for someone you just met. As I stated earlier, human unpredictability is fascinating. The probability matrices surrounding your species suggest that where humans go, significant change follows. I find myself curious about the outcome. Jack pocketed the chip and smiled. Well, buckle up then, buddy, because if there's one thing humans are good at, it's messing up everyone's carefully laid plans, including our own. He checked the small timer on his wrist. Showtime in 3 minutes. Places everyone. As Myra slipped away toward the docking bay and Benny interfaced with the ship's systems, Jack took a deep breath. He was about to make himself the most wanted human in Krylaxian space. Time to live up to the reputation of humanity, he muttered to himself as he stepped into position. Chaotic, unpredictable, and really, really annoying when we want to be. Jack Novak had always believed that if you're going to cause a distraction, you should make it memorable. Which is why he was currently sprinting down the main corridor of the Krylaxian warship, alarms blaring in his wake, shouting earth obscenities, and trailing a cloud of what the ship's environmental system believed was toxic gas, but was actually a harmless vapor with an odor remarkably similar to rotten eggs. Attention all personnel. The ship's announcement system boomed. Human biological contamination detected in main corridor section 12. Quarantine protocols in effect. Krylaxian crew members scattered in panic, their training apparently not covering lone human running amok with simulated biological hazards. Behind him, decontamination barriers snapped into place, creating the perfect path toward the docking bay while simultaneously preventing pursuit. "Benny, you're a genius," Jack muttered into his communicator. "How long until they figure out it's fake?" "Approximately 3.7 minutes, Benny's voice replied from the small device. "The ship's biological detection systems are calibrated for known threats. Your suggestion to program it with false readings of human flatulence as bioweapon was inspired." "Never underestimate humanity's appreciation for a good fart joke," Jack replied, skidding around a corner. "Even across galaxies, some things are universal." As Jack approached the docking bay entrance, he could see the guards had abandoned their posts to follow emergency protocols. The doors were sealed with a glowing red containment field. "Myra, I'm at the entrance, but it's locked down," Jack reported. "Stand by," came Myra's voice. Rerouting emergency protocols. The red field flickered and disappeared. The massive doors slid open just enough for Jack to squeeze through before closing again. Inside the docking bay, Jack spotted his ship, the Reasonable Doubt, a modified cargo hauler that had seen better decades. Myra was already at the access panel, all 4 hands working simultaneously to bypass the security systems. "How's it coming?" Jack asked, jogging up to her. Almost there, Myra's fingers flew across the interface. "The Krylaxians have added extra security measures. They really don't want this ship going anywhere." A loud bang echoed through the bay as something heavy impacted the main doors. "That would be our cue to hurry," Jack said tensely. The security field around the Reasonable Doubt flickered and died. The docking clamps released with a satisfying clunk. "We're in," Myra exclaimed. They raced up the boarding ramp just as the docking bay doors began to grind open. Jack dove into the pilot's seat while Myra took the co-pilot position. "Starting emergency launch sequence," Jack announced, his fingers dancing across the familiar controls. He pulled Benny's data chip from his pocket and inserted it into the console. The ship's systems flickered momentarily before the view screens lit up with Benny's familiar blue light pattern. "Integration complete." Benny's voice came through the ship's speakers. "I have accessed the Reasonable Doubt systems. May I say, Jack, your maintenance protocols are concerning." "To criticize my ship later. Help us escape now," Jack replied, firing up the engines. The docking bay doors were now fully open, revealing a very angry Commander Vrex flanked by a squad of heavily armed guards. "A human," Vrex bellowed, his voice somehow carrying over the roar of the engines. "You will surrender immediately or face obliteration." Jack keyed the external communications system. "Sorry, Commander. Nothing personal, but I've got places to be and rebellions to accidentally support." The reasonable doubt lifted off the docking bay floor, its thrusters sending equipment and supplies scattering. The Krylaxian guards opened fire, but Jack had already engaged the ship's shields. Calculating optimal escape trajectory, BENNI announced, recommend exit vector 227 Mark 45. Course set, Myra confirmed. But the bay doors are closing. Indeed, the massive external doors that separated the docking bay from open space were slowly grinding shut. Hold on to something, Jack warned, pushing the throttle to maximum. The reasonable doubt surged forward, aimed directly at the narrowing gap. This is mathematically unsound. Myra yelped, her skin flashing rapid patterns of alarm. Welcome to flying with humans, Jack replied with a grin that was equal parts terror and exhilaration. The cargo ship scraped through the gap with millimeters to spare, paint and non-essential exterior components shearing off in a shower of sparks. They burst into open space, the massive Krylaxian warship looming behind them. Freedom, Jack whooped. Now let's see what this baby can do. Detecting multiple pursuit craft launching, BENNI warned, the probability of outrunning Krylaxian interceptors, 17.4%. Never tell me the odds, Jack muttered, pushing the ship into a series of evasive maneuvers that the aging cargo hauler was definitely not designed for. The ship's communication system crackled to life, and Commander Vrex's face appeared on the screen. His scales had darkened to an almost black color, a sign of extreme rage in Krylaxians. You have made a fatal error, human, Vrex snarled. No one escapes the Krylaxian Empire. Our ships are faster. Our weapons superior. You will be recaptured within moments. Jack glanced at Myra, who was monitoring the pursuing vessels with growing concern. She nodded grimly, confirming Vrex's assessment. You're probably right, Commander, Jack replied calmly. Your ships are faster. Your weapons are better. In a fair fight, you'd win every time. He flipped a series of switches on the console. Good thing, I don't believe in fair fights. With that, Jack activated the reasonable doubt's secret modification, a jury-rigged hyperdrive accelerator that probably violated a dozen safety regulations and definitely voided the warranty. The ship lurched violently as the engines whined in protest. Jack, Myra exclaimed. What are you doing? The power systems can't handle this kind of strain. That's where you're wrong, Jack replied with a strained smile. This ship is like humanity, looks unimpressive, breaks all the rules, and is way more stubborn than seems reasonable. The stars began to stretch as the hyperdrive engaged, far faster than standard protocols allowed. On the view screen, Commander Vrex's expression morphed from confidence to disbelief. Impossible. The Krylaxian commander spluttered. Your ship doesn't have the capabilities to. The transmission cut off as the reasonable doubt shot into hyperspace, leaving the Krylaxian pursuit craft far behind. In the sudden quiet of hyperspace, Jack slumped back in his seat. That, he announced to no one in particular, was entirely too close. Agreed, Myra said, her skin slowly returning to its normal coloration. Though I must admit, your solution was effective. Calculating our position, BENNI reported. We are on course for the Proxima system, though our hyperspace trajectory is highly inefficient due to the unorthodox entry vector. Jack grinned. In other words, we escaped by being sloppy. I would not have phrased it that way, BENNI replied, but the assessment is accurate. Jack swiveled his chair to face Myra. So, rebel engineer, what's our next move? Deliver the cargo, save the rebellion, overthrow an empire. Myra studied him with her faceted eyes. Ben, you're taking this remarkably well for someone who just became the most wanted human in Krylaxian space. Jack shrugged. It's been a weird day. Started with a routine cargo run, moved to alien imprisonment, and now I'm apparently a revolutionary. I might as well embrace it. Humans, Myra said, shaking her head with what might have been admiration, are remarkably adaptable. That's us, Jack agreed. We didn't survive on Earth by being the strongest or the fastest. We survived by being really, really hard to get rid of. Like cockroaches, remember? BENNI's lights pulsed in what Jack was beginning to recognize as amusement. I have accessed information about these cockroaches. The analogy is surprisingly apt. As the reasonable doubt hurtled through hyperspace toward an uncertain future, Jack felt strangely at peace. Sure, he was now an enemy of the most powerful empire in the quadrant. Yes, he was heading straight into a war zone. And absolutely, his ship was probably going to need major repairs after the abuse he'd just put it through. But for the first time in years, Jack Novak wasn't just hauling cargo. He was part of something bigger. You know, he said thoughtfully, Commander Vrex asked me how I escaped. I should have told him the truth. Which is? Myra asked. Jack smiled. That humans didn't conquer their own planet by having the most teeth or the thickest scales. We did it by being the species that refused to stay down when knocked over. The human didn't run out of ammo. He patted the console of his battered but still flying ship. He ran out of patience. BENNI's lights pulsed contemplatively, a most illogical but surprisingly effective approach to survival. That, Jack said with a laugh, should be humanity's official motto.